Chapter 6 today, and so here is what we left off with, or part of what we looked at rather just yesterday. Yeah, I guess it was yesterday. And this is the political marketplace where we've got, people of society. These people also bear in mind, right? So there's households, but part of the households, 8 hours a day put in their shift and work as a business. And so we got businesses as a one type of organization, and then we got our households, and we have votes and campaign contributions that are coming over to the political process where we have politicians and bureaucrats. What was the difference? What's a bureaucrat? Let me go, Daniel. Employee so somebody who works for the government, helps facilitate it, whereas politicians are elected officials. So those are kind of our two groups of people, and so they are providing different types of public policy, law changes, different proposals, that sort of thing. And so as part of that overall effort, businesses might find it profitable to have law changes to their favor. And so they might have a pure heart, so to speak, in terms of wanting to protect your privacy. How many of you remember when Mark Zuckerberg, oh gosh, it's probably now it's escaping me, but I don't know if it was 5 years ago, went before Congress when we were, I guess, a little bit more up in arms about privacy and data privacy and that sort of thing, and Zuckerberg goes up before Congress as Facebook owner and one of the major players in this, and says, "Oh, Facebook pledges to help build really good data privacy, and we'll work together with the government, kind of hand in hand with to build something that's great." And so, was Zuckerberg really all concerned about your privacy? 100% pure, or by, and then the way to think about this, that kind of thinking a little bit deeper, is if we do have new restrictions on how companies have to handle your data, does that lead to a higher cost or lower cost of producing whatever they're producing? Higher or lower? Higher, right? And so did that make them easier or harder to compete with Zuckerberg? Does that make it easier or harder for them, a new company, to compete with Zuckerberg, with Facebook? Harder, right? And so part of Zuckerberg's motivations may have been, he's never come out and publicly said this, but this has happened 1,000 times in the course of history, is to actually an attempt to kind of keep competition out, right? To keep the business. He's the existing incumbent business, very successful, billionaire, blah, blah, blah. And so let's, really protect people, and I can maintain my market power, basically. But that doesn't ever go on record, but that was the plea. So, all right. So let's see. That thing I wanted to, let's see. Oh yeah, we're going to go to this first here. So one of my favorite economists is Thomas Sowell. This is closer to what he looks like today. He's been around for a number of years, but that's Thomas Sowell. And I love this quote that he's got. In fact, it's in your book too. The first lesson of economics is scarcity, right? Limited resources, like we talked about. There's never enough of anything to satisfy all those who want it. Unlimited wants, limited resources. The first lesson of politics is to disregard the first lesson of economics. Right? So we're going to not worry about scarcity as much, and so he's kind of playing at the idea of the government being able to spend other people's money in the sense of the ability to kind of chase things without the same types of cost-benefit analysis anyway in doing that. So I think that's it for this here. So why in the political arena are politicians able to more easily ignore scarcity and pursue various activities? So one that we talked about yesterday, I want to relist. So reasons why government relative to the size of the overall economy. So the chapter kind of starts off with just showing that government has grown. And there might be good reasons for the growth, and some of the growth might have been good. So we're not kind of saying that, but what's kind of the underlying principles of the political marketplace that might cause that to happen. And so the one we explored yesterday was rational ignorance. And what was rational ignorance? Who's got that in their notes? Yesterday, let's go back here somewhere. Back to class. Take the earbuds out. Earbuds out also. Phones off the desks. Tucked away in your backpacks. What do you got? But, can't remember. Alex. Okay, so they're ignorant about public policy, and why? This gets into the rational part. Because why? I think you're missing that part if I'm hearing you right. So they choose to stay uninformed because there's greater benefits. Okay, keep going. Expected benefits are what? What was the last part of that we did? The expected benefits? The costs are what relative to these expected benefits? Okay, so it's costly to be informed, but that's okay. Like we do a lot of things that are costly, right? I mean, you guys are paying a lot of tuition and spending time to be here today to get a degree, right? So we do lots of things that are costly. So I don't mind high cost, but why are we choosing to stay ignorant on it? What's the cost? And then Alex brought in the benefits. What's the last kind of piece of the puzzle to knit that together?
The expected cost is greater than the expected benefits.
Expected costs are greater than the expected benefits, right? So you're kind of looking at that saying, my vote doesn't matter in the sense of changing the outcome of an election, right? It's a very, very small probability. And so even if there are a decent amount of benefits for me getting either a certain policy through or a certain person elected, the chance of me actually impacting that election is very small. So my actions are very unlikely to lead to any sort of benefits at the end of the day. My particular personal actions are going to not really lead to some sort of outcome for me, but yet the costs are high. So the whole thing of knitting together what Alex said and the cost thing here is that the expected benefits of staying informed are less than the expected cost. All right, so we'll just kind of summarize that. You have that in your notes here, but under rational ignorance here, the expected benefit of being informed is less than the expected costs of being informed. And so, in large part, the result is a number of citizens throughout the United States that are not being informed about public policy issues. And if that's the case, those are the people going to vote. It gets us it's a harder argument to make that we're going to get good outcomes in the voting booth if we have uninformed voters. And so there's other models, by the way, where if we have fully informed voters, then we would expect to get better outcomes in the voting booth. All right, so any last questions or comments? So that's the rational ignorance. So let's see here. So 2, businesses do find the expected benefit greater than the expected cost, and therefore lobby politicians for favorable law changes. So basically they find it profitable to do that in some way, shape, or form in general. And so cronyism is big business and big government. I'll put the Russ definition first, but so big business, which is part of the discussion tonight, big business and big government, big business anyway, playing kissy face. Okay, so continually having businesses able to, buy politicians. Maybe if voters were more informed and more engaged, then this would happen less. But because of rational ignorance, the part of the check and balance, if you will, is broke down due to the incentives. Okay, so questions on that one? Yeah.
If there's any chance the companies are intentionally making it harder or more costly to get the information they need, that way they have more of a chance of not getting voted.
Say that again.
Okay. Do you think there's a chance that businesses make it harder, make it cost more to find the information for voters so that they can put in politicians?
No, not really. I don't think that's an issue. I mean, most of the stuff is pretty transparent out there, but you do have to do a little digging, and that's the hours of work that it would need to kind of really get that. But I think government regulations with SEC make certain disclosures that have to be done by corporations, and so there's information out there like that. Daniel?
We talked about this yesterday, but I would just argue that it doesn't have to be big government, because even back when our government was really small,
Sure.
the difference then was that the idea for big business was, hey, you don't intervene. Instead of creating a law change form, it was, you don't actually do anything, you just sit there and let us get big.
Yeah, and that's a fair thing that some small businesses, so when I think big business, I'm thinking Pizza Village doesn't have enough money to lobby even our state senators for the most part, right? And so big business has the ability to carve out that as an expense and make it meaningful in Washington, D.C. as opposed to small businesses. I'm thinking more mom and pop style. But still, historically, it's possible that businesses, but in fact, Adam Smith said that we should expect that businesses are going to try to conspire with each other and try to reduce competition. So, okay, number 3 is the distribution of benefits and costs from a given policy. Okay, so let's see, I guess I don't love this 4-square thing, but it's kind of decent. Let's see if I can do this without butchering it, but I'm going to do it a little differently than your textbook, but about the same here. So we've got the voters over here, and it's the distribution of costs over voters. So the voters are the distribution of costs, and up here it's the distribution of benefits among voters. And so the benefits could affect a whole bunch of people, like a bunch of people are going to be impacted positively. So the benefits are widespread by this potential policy, or they're very concentrated. And then who's going to pay for the policy, the costs? Are the costs going to be spread over a number of voters, widespread costs, or is it going to be concentrated? Concentrated. We had better just put looks kind of like some other foreign word here about what we just concentrated with. So we got concentrated costs versus benefits. So let me just give you a little example. If we implement a 1% sales tax, are the costs of that tax widespread or concentrated? A 1% increase in the sales tax. Does that sound like it would be the cost of the tax would be widespread among many voters or concentrated on a smaller fraction of voters? What do you think? Widespread, right? So we all go to the cash register, and so everybody's going to be kind of paying that. Whereas if we had a tax that says we're going to tax the top 10% of income earners or something, now we've got the cost of that tax being concentrated on a small fraction of voters, right? And 90% going the other direction. So that would be an example of the cost of a policy being widespread or concentrated. And then what is the policy, how is it benefiting people? Is the benefits of the new change, widespread or concentrated with a few? All right, so with that thought then, your book has, let's call this type 1, type 2, type 3, and type 4. All right, and so the moral of this story is that if they match, if we have widespread benefits and costs, or concentrated benefits and costs, then the political process through voting has a better chance of getting a better outcome, of an efficient outcome. So type 1 and type 4, type 1 and type 4. I gotta make sure that I'm getting my types down. This is what I hate about going back with the types. I tried to do it a different way one time, but yeah, type 3. Oh, that's why I screwed up. Sorry, edit this. I don't want to be inconsistent with the. So 1, 2, 3, 4 is the labeling of the little squares here. So now type 1, you have to do a little erasing or crossing off. Sorry, that's what was throwing me because I knew it was these two that I wanted. So with type 1 and type 3, both widespread or both concentrated. So the political process is more likely to pass a more efficient policy. So from an economist standpoint, let's say relatively good policy. So what about type 4? Let's go to type 4. So with type 4, we've got benefits that are very widespread. So widespread benefits. And concentrated costs. So if we have this, the political process is likely to reject. So political process is more likely to reject good projects. Now that I kind of defined good down here. So if we have, let's say, $330 million worth of benefits, that's very widespread. In fact, basically every person in the population, how many people do we have on our little island here we live on in the United States? Roughly 300 million, right? So 330, I was trying to pick something like, let's say we have $330 million worth of benefits, but the benefits are going to accrue to everybody equally. That's $1 per person. So for example, $330 million of benefits spread out over 330 million people equals $1 per person. Is $1 per person per year something for you to really get excited about? Is that a lot of money to you, even as a college person? $1 stinking dollar per year, right? So are you going to tend to care about that particular project? Or would that one especially be something you might choose to be rationally ignorant on, right? So you don't really care. It's only $1 per year. Now, if the costs of that policy are being borne by, let's say the Apple industry. I don't know why I picked the Apple industry, but one particular industry of growers, and all of those costs, the $330 million is going to be paid by, just 30 major apple growers. So example, $330 million of cost divided by 33 apple growers. How much is each apple grower paying? $330 million of cost, and there's only 33 apple growers. How much is each apple company paying? Yeah, so we got 10 million here. So 1 million would be 3, so this is 10 million bucks. What do you think the apple growers are going to do? Are they going to fight this one? Yes. So they're going to go to their politicians. They're going to say, oh, you can't do this policy. We're going to lose all of our jobs. The apple growing industry is going to, collapse. You're going to lay off people. We're going to have to close our factories, stop apple juice production, blah, 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 right? So they do advertisements on TikTok and social media, and they lobby their politicians, right? They're oh, we can't do this. This is going to affect me. This is going to be a real impact on us. And so now we've got the loud ones being the ones against it. And then where were you guys at on the issue? I mean, there's $330 million worth of benefits. You're fairly silent on it. And so you're like, and then maybe even so, since it's only $1 for you, your heart kind of tugs and says, well, I don't want to put the apple growers out of business. right? And so you kind of have a sentiment like that, and it doesn't get passed. So our political process tends to reject potentially, and I'm just assuming that whatever this policy is a good project, that it would be rejected. And it could have been, by the way, and it probably would have been better for me to put $300 million worth of cost. And you guys will probably kill me, but maybe this will help actually rather than hurt. $300 million of cost with 30 apple growers. So now we get the same result here. Should we do the policy? Yes, there's benefits of 330 million and it only costs us 300 million. We should do that policy, right? From a cost benefit standpoint, just to make it a little bit more obvious. But because of these issues in the political process, there's a tendency for those things not to happen. So with type 4, we tend to reject good policy.
Is it really gonna make the apple growers out of business?
Well, they're going to claim that it's going to put them out of business, but they might adjust. I don't have a lot of the details here, so I'm not saying that this might be chump change for the $800 million company or something, whatever. So yes, I'm kind of ignoring some of that issue here. But benefits, costs, this would say do it. If those benefits and costs, we're doing that. And then when we have policies up here, where we have widespread costs and concentrated benefits, we just flip the script a little bit. So, hey, we're gonna have a policy that subsidizes apple growers, and the benefits to apple growers is 300 million, and the cost to the people is $1 per person per year. So we're flipping the script now. Do you still care if you lose $1? $1 over one course of a whole year. You're gonna probably lose $1 more, right? So the idea is the amount, and I could have went to pennies just to keep it easier, but $1 per year per person is negligible. So again, the people are gonna remain rationally ignorant, but do the apple growers like the idea of an apple subsidy that gets them 10 million? Of course. But the policy shouldn't be undertaken under a cost-benefit analysis because the benefits to apple growers are less than the cost to the people, but the people aren't going to care. They're going to be rationally ignorant because it's such a small amount of money, and all of the costs are very widespread over them. And so now the apple growers are, of course, like, yeah, this is a great idea. Did you know apples help save lives and apples are healthy? And remember the old saying, an apple a day keeps the doctor away? And you guys have those healthcare policies, and yes, so let's subsidize apples, right? And so we're gonna get people rallying to vote for that. And then even us, as being rationally ignorant, we just hear, oh yeah, my mom told me that too. Apple a day keeps the doctor away, yeah, that's probably fine, whatever, I don't really care, right? And so what happens? That policy gets passed, even though it's a bad policy. So when we have the distribution of costs being widespread and concentrated benefits, then we have a tendency to pass bad policy. Okay, let me summarize that one so that you got it good in your notes here on reversing it. So what do we got? Type 2. So type 2, in the type 2 quadrant, we got bad policy is one in which the marginal cost is greater than the marginal benefit. In other words, we shouldn't do it. Let me just kind of define what I put as bad. Bad policy is one in which the costs of that are greater than the benefits. And so 30 apple growers get 10 million each means a cost of 300 million. Sorry, benefits of 300 million, sorry. Means benefits of 300 million. $330 million taxpayers with $1 per person is 330 million of costs. So in general, the people don't care, claiming rational ignorance, and businesses, and let's say Apple, I guess, just to keep this to this example, and the Apple business, Apple industry, I'll just include all of them. Apple industry lobbies to get it passed. And then we can point to, cronyism or whatever. Okay, any questions or comments on that one? All right, a couple more definitional things and then we'll be kind of wrapping up this chapter. We talked about lobbying to try to get the benefits, and economists have a specific name for that called rent seeking. So, rent seeking. I really don't like this word. It's because of course we think about apartment rent or something. So let me start by just defining what economists call rent. So rent is a payment to someone above the opportunity cost of production. So it's different than a profit, and we're going to actually work on this in later chapters too. So for now, just think of it as some sort of kind of extra payment that's going up. So rent seeking is, in this context, a business that's looking to get kind of a free handout from the government for the activities that they're taking on or whatever they successfully lobbied for. It could have been just protection from competition or other things. So rent seeking, I'll just write it out again. Rent seeking, and maybe I'll pull out the textbook definition here. So it is actions by individuals and groups. So when we say groups of individuals, we might be talking about firms, special interest groups, which I haven't even talked about yet. Special interests groups, unions, just put it center. Basically just groups of people that organize themselves in some way, shape, or form for some objective. So it's actions by individuals and groups designed to restructure public policy in a manner that will benefit them. Through a redistribution and this is kind of the key part here, that it's not because they invented the next best mousetrap, but they're able to successfully redistribute from taxpayers to the apple growers, right? That's what we mean by redistribution, a transfer payment. A redistribution of income to, and we'll just, I already said that, to themselves. All right, so that's the idea of rent seeking, is kind of looking for handouts, and what's a bad spot for the economy to get to is that instead of people trying to produce anything, energy, apples, software, they find it profitable to spend money on looking for handouts, because the government has shown that they're willing to give these handouts, and that they can pass handouts and a policy through the political process depending on how it's framed in different ways. And so since our process looks that way, different types of companies and or special interest groups find it profitable to do that. Okay, so questions or comments on rent seeking? It's kind of weaved into a lot of what we've already been talking about, but we need to get that formal definition. Another formal definition I wanted to get you was the idea of public choice. So public choice theory applies the principles of incentives and self-interest to the operations of the political process, which is what we've been doing the whole time here. So when we laid out the political marketplace and we said politicians are looking to get elected or to stay in office, and bureaucrats want to have some job security, which is understandable, by the way. I mean, anybody would. We're all just humans. It's kind of recognizing that humans have to run the government too. And so some of the shortcomings that we have in the political process might be due to thinking that some sort of angels are running the government, right? That they check their self-interest at the door. So assumes that humans, not angels, run the political process. And that's not me coming, somebody else said angels, I don't remember who it was, but too often we think, oh, let's let the government figure that out, or we have a bad outcome in the market, some sort of market failure, and so we turn to the government for a solution, and it just kind of raises a caution flag, like, oh, don't forget, there's real people that are running that government for us as well. Okay. All right, last thing here. We'll be heading into the weekend. So I said special interest. So special interest issues. So a special interest issue is an issue that generates substantial benefits to a small minority while imposing a small individual cost on many others. So this is just capturing what we did a little more carefully with the dispersed benefits and widespread costs. Having concentration of benefits to one thing, we call that a special interest group, or a special interest would be our apple growers trying to pass legislation that doesn't pass a cost benefit test, but with rationally ignorant voters, it's something that they can get through, and it benefits them in generating some additional funds. All right, any last questions? All right, mark your calendars, you're getting out early today, look at that.